Next, we are delighted to welcome Geoff Bell. Geoff is a public housing tenant, now an affordable housing tenant, following one of the biggest regeneration projects in Europe called Woodbury Down. Geoff has lived there for 30 years and plays a prominent role as a resident representative, making sure that the substantial development and management changes at Woodbury Down are in the residents' interest. Geoff has helped to shape the master plan for the project and has regular meetings with elected officials to make sure his voice is being reflected in the partnership work being done on the site between private developers, Notting Hill Genesis, and a community development organization. Please welcome Geoff.
Thank you very much, Jessica, and I would like to thank CHPC for asking me to speak at this morning's conference. We've had a great couple of days in New York, seeing various housing associations meeting tenants representatives, and it's been a real educational lesson for us and to sort of do this. So as Jessica says, I have lived in Woodbury Down Estate for 35 years now. I came from Ireland in the sort of first place, and I was given a flat in Woodbury Down when basically nobody wanted to live in that area. You will see from the slide we have that this is Woodbury Down as it is today, with the old houses in the front and the new skyscraping tower being built in the back. And we have thrown in a nice little rainbow there, which is actually real. I didn't sort of fill it in by any Photoshop it in or anything. It was actually there, and hopefully that it sort of represents what we aspire to do. There's 10,000 people who live in the area, on the estate, and our experience has been to try and give those 10,000 people a voice in the regeneration that is taking place. But it's a bit more than a voice, because as you see, I have given the title of my presentation this morning, the importance of giving power to local people. And that essentially is what the story I'm trying to tell today is about, how we empowered our community to have a voice, to have a controlling voice at times in the way our estate was refurbished, regenerated, and rebuilt. First of all, I want to give a little bit of context to it. The photograph at the top you'll see is before the first regeneration, because we've had two. This was in about early 20th century, and you'll see, you can sort of tell from that, it wasn't actually a hive of activity at that stage. But anyway, after the Second World War, the new Woodbury Down estate was built. And this was built basically to house people who had been bombed out in the Second World War. And they came from mainly working class homes. And indeed, the people who lived in that area at the time said, we don't want these people coming here because these are slum dwellers. And so there was a sort of campaign among the rich and the powerful to try and stop the slum dwellers coming. But the slum dwellers came. And the various fact that they had survived bombing, or maybe they came back from serving in the Second World War, gave us a community, if you like, which was prepared to stand up and fight for its rights. And they came to an area as well, which, as you will see in the second photograph here, we had two reservoirs. So it just wasn't the inner city London dwelling, the economic deprivation which sort of came to the area, but we also had our reservoirs, and our reservoirs were a source of great peace for us. We could walk sort of around them and so on and so on. And what has inspired the present story is that 35 years ago, developers came along, and the people who owned the reservoirs wanted to sell these reservoirs to be concreted over for the housing for the more prosperous people in London. And the local people turned around and says, no, we don't want that, we want to save our reservoirs. And they fought a 10-year campaign against the national government and against the property developers to keep the reservoirs, and that campaign was a success. So that is the sort of lesson from history, if you like, which has inspired us to what we do today. The regeneration, I'm just checking the right things come up on the screen. The regeneration deal then was that the 2,000 homes, and these were all council homes at this time, the 2,000 homes would be replaced by 5,500 homes, and 40% of the 5,500 homes would be affordable. It was a mixed tenure development, which meant there was going to be private homes, there's going to be shared ownership homes, which means people can sort of buy into homes, but they don't pay the whole mortgage at this once. And there was the social homes, which were homes for rent, managed today by Notting Hill Genesis. So this was a partnership development of the local council, the developers, ourselves, and Hackney Council. And it was regeneration, not refurbishment. That meant we were knocking down the whole estate and building new homes. And the reason for that was that the council didn't have money at the time to refurbish. But we were guaranteed from the very start the right of a return for all social tenants in this estate. This is not something which happens in every regeneration scheme in the sort of UK, but that was a promise from the start, and that was what sort of made it sort of possible. We also have written into the whole regeneration deal something called Section 106, which I think is in your brochure, which means that a certain percentage of the profit which the developers make have to be fed back into the community to help provide schools and various other things like that. So that's sort of an important provision. So our aim was to make our voices heard. This is the top picture here shows our new shop, and our new shop was provided by the developers, and the rent is paid by Hackney Council. And that was opened 4 or 5 years ago. And it's, if you like, it's a sort of symbol of the partnership which we were trying to sort of build. But the early story of the development which actually took place was rather more one of consultation than empowerment. And a lot of mistakes were made in the first phase of rebuilding the estate. A lot of promises, well, some promises which had been made by the various partners weren't actually kept. So we said when the next phase was proposed that we took the opportunity to try and press for a change of practice and said, henceforth, and we said we would oppose the various plans which were at that stage being put forward to carry on the regeneration, and we would oppose those plans if we didn't come to some form of agreement. So eventually, a memorandum of agreement was formed between ourselves and the developers, which meant that we would have a seat at the planning of the estate in the future for the next phases. And not only would we have a seat, but we wrote into the memorandum of agreement that we would have the right to veto anything we didn't like. And so that gave us a real powerful voice, and if you like, that is something we have made use of ever since then. We managed to carry this thing through by various processes, such as the round table, which we meet with the Mayor of Hackney every 2 months, in which all the partners sit round the table and discuss what is sort of going on and discuss the way sort of forward. So again, it's being there at the sort of seat of power, at the seat of authority. Our principle, which we wrote into the memorandum of agreement at the start, was to have a balanced and mixed community. And that meant that we didn't want the the rich people in one section of the estate and the poor people in another section of the estate. We wanted the mix, and we wanted we wanted the various tenures to come together and build the community together. So that means our sort of organisation just doesn't represent the social tenants, it also represents the shared ownership tenants, it represents sort of private tenants whose representatives all sit on our board. What are our aims? Our aims at this present stage are, first of all, to make sure that the affordable homes remain affordable. We've got things like, we sort of do find sometimes that, especially in the shared ownership homes, that that while the mortgage level stays the same, service charges go up and up. So the sort of recent sort of controversy, if you like, we've had is to try to look at those service charges, and we have now been promised a charter from the developer about how our service charges become affordable. So that's the sort of thing we want, and we continue to negotiate. We have always said, and this again was something which was in our memorandum of agreement, that we should have proportionate views. What we mean by that is that in the first phase of the development, the people, the sort of private development, tended to get the better views of the reservoirs, while, if you like, the social homes were overlooking the main roads, which isn't, the same. So we tried to turn that round, and so we've got this written in an agreement that because 40% of the new homes would be owned by social homes, then we should have 40% of the best views. And again, that is something which has been signed up for. But most important thing, I think, was that what we are building in our area is not simply new homes, we're rebuilding our community. That means we have a new community centre, a new school, a new youth club. We have new shops coming in. And we have a say on sort of how all these things are actually sort of organised, and who controls them, and what sort of shops are sort of coming in, sort of so on and so on. We have gained from this a wonderful new nature reserve on one of our reservoirs, which was recently opened by someone called David Attenborough, who some of you might know, a very famous television personality. And he came and opened our new nature reserve, which is a wonderful asset to our area, and brings people in, and obviously brings money in far and wide from people who sort of come to visit us. The picture in the sort of bottom there is our new school, and the picture at the top is the picture of some of the homes which are now being built. Sorry, where we are, the progress of regeneration at the moment, as we've finished about 1/3 of the homes. So it is a long project, and it'll be last another 10 years at least. But things at the moment are sort of running smoothly enough, really. How we work this sort of process, the major way we now manage regeneration is through a design group. And this design group looks at things like, and makes the decision on all aspects of the new phases which are being built. That is where the blocks are going to go, who are going to live in them, what the exterior design of the blocks are going to be, and what the interior design of the social homes is sort of going to be. And that goes from where the sort of windows are placed, or to where the electrical sockets are sort of placed, if you like. Everything which is to do with the interior design of the new homes. We also determine through this group what the landscape of the area is going to like, where the green spaces are sort of going to go, how are we going to fill those green spaces, and so on. At the end of each phase of the development, we draw up a sort of document which the developers called learning the lessons, i.e. things which maybe haven't gone right, and we call making mistakes. We call them learning mistakes, they call them learning lessons. But there you are, these things happen. So we draw them, and you see, the thing is, because we actually live in these homes which have just been built, any mistakes which sort of have been made, and they're not huge ones, it's just things like, like veranda doors shouldn't sort of open sort of outwards, or the wind can sort of blow them, and we turn around and tell the developers, this was a mistake. And they says, these guys are right. And of course, we are right because we have lived in these homes. We have lived in the homes that are being built. So we're able to sort of tell them this. So we're the experts, and they don't even have to pay us, It's a wonderful resource we sort of give them really here, No, but not sort of everything has sort of gone right, because I don't want to build too rosy sort of picture there. You will see the sort of picture in this is a picture of a sort of swimming pool, and the sort of swimming pool was swimming pools are provided in a number of the new blocks for private sort of owners. Now, we didn't really like that because we thought it went against building an integrated community. So they had private gyms. There was also a cheap gym for the ordinary people and things like that. So it's meant that people didn't sort of actually mix. So anyway, we said you can't sort of do that, and it's going against previous agreements. So we negotiated about this in quite strong terms for over a year. And in the end, we got a promise that they wouldn't build any more private gyms or sort of swimming pools after the ones which were being built, and you see in that photograph. And in return, they said, what do you want? And they gave us a new space to be decided for use by the community, which is approximately, I suppose, the same size of space as this hall. So, for instance, we will be put in there a private nursery and sort of so on, things like that. We will put it in, hopefully, a new library, things which help, again, serve the community as a whole. So that is the sort of thing we have got. The most sort of latest gain we have put forward and asked for a partnership agreement between ourselves, the council, the developers, and Notting Hill Genesis, which again charts the way forward, and again says that from this point onward, that will be a consensus working. That is, we will all have it is written in that we have to agree on the various stages going forward. So I'll just briefly say where we want to go. And I think we have to look at some other questions too. We have to study, which we haven't done enough, the whole question of sort of viability, because private developers tend to keep viability issues very sort of close to their chest, which makes it very difficult for those of us who are trying to say what we're going to build, how we're going to build it, and so on and so on. Realize what the various sort of options are. We want to increase the number and percentage of sort of social homes, because it's important to sort of realize that while our estate, I think, it's gone quite well, at the same time, in sort of many ways, as far as the less well off in London are concerned, we're only standing still as far as our estate is concerned. We're only rehousing the existing tenant. We aren't really giving many more homes for their lower sort of income people who are there is about 12,000 people on the housing waiting list in Hackney, and that is something we want to challenge. But we want to build a proud community, one that is proud of its history, proud of the struggles we've sort of fought for, fight for the issues which we think the sort of local people sort of want. And I'll sort of close with one sort of small sort of a example of the sort of thing which has happened. when the developers came, they started putting up all these signs and placard and billboards with a sign, Woodbury Park, welcome to Woodbury Park. And we went to these meetings and said, Woodbury Park, what's this? Never heard of Woodbury Park. You're living in Woodbury Down. And of course they said, no, Woodbury Park. And of course they thought Woodbury Park would sell the homes better than a place called Woodbury Down, which, you know. So they said Woodbury Park. So we would go to these meetings, right? And they would say, Woodbury Park this. We would get up at these meetings and say, Woodbury Down this, Woodbury Down this, you know. And this went on for about 9 months, right? Us speaking on different terminology and calling a place different. And eventually, the developers came to and says, all right, guys, you've won. We're taking down the signs about Woodbury Park. It's now called Woodbury Down. And we have since then won, I think, 4 or 5 prizes, national prizes on Woodbury Down. And they called Woodbury Down a community-led regeneration. And we've won prizes for that, you know. So, I mean, that just shows you, I mean, it's not a huge thing. It hasn't changed the conditions, but it sort of shows to me, you know, the sort of mindset, which I think we have actually changed in the developers and the way they've sort of realized that we can speak good sense. I'll end with these sort of slides. On the sort of people you'll see there are members of the Save the Reservoirs campaign 35 years ago. You will see the photograph of the reservoir too. And if it hadn't been for those people, obviously that reservoir wouldn't be there now. And if that reservoir hadn't been there now, the homes wouldn't have been built, because Berkeley Homes now sell the private homes on the basis of the views of the reservoirs. So if those people hadn't fought for that struggle, those local people hadn't fought for that reservoir, not only would that reservoir wouldn't be there, but the regeneration wouldn't be happening now. So the message and the message which I would end with is that, you see, local people know best. Thank you very much.